a scientist invented two things that not only took millions of lives around the world, but also became a threat to him. These inventions caused destruction in different environments and led to a significant decline in human intelligence. Plus, crime rates worldwide also spiked because of these inventions. What were these inventions that brought so much havoc that Ree still remembered? And who was the person behind them? Let's dive into it again in the videos. Welcome, folks. This interesting story kicks off in 1908, when a woman was driving her car through Detroit, Michigan. Suddenly, her car broke down in the middle of the road. A passerby noticed and pulled over to help her out. Back then, cars didn't start with a push button. They had a handle that you had to crank, which took quite a bit of muscle. And it wasn't exactly something women were expected to do. That's why the guy stepped in to help start her car. The car started fine, but then the engine backfired and the crank handle hit that guy right in the jaw. The injury was so severe that he died just a few days later. This guy was Baron Corder, who used to own a car manufacturing company. This wasn't the first time something like this happened, because of the crank handle. But Baron's death hit the automotive industry hard. At that time, Henry Leland was the owner of Cadillac, and he was a close friend of Baron. Henry was devastated by the loss of his friend. Meaning he wouldn't have to put in any effort. And it had to be completely safe. To achieve this, he hired Charles Kettering. After 3 years of hard work, in 1911, the world's first Grand Prix car was created, named the Battle of 30. The 3030 didn't just start effortlessly using an electric starter motor. It was more powerful than other cars and could go faster too. The Cutlet 30 was a huge success, leading to a big boost in the company's sales. But along with all these great features, there was one issue: its engine was louder than those in older models. It was so noisy that people often had to cover their ears. In a typical engine, there is a piston inside a cylinder. And on top of that cylinder, there's a spark plug. The spark plug ignites the fuel and air mixture inside the cylinder. The fuel-oxygen mixture would ignite instantly. This phenomenon is called angel braking, and it really affected the fuel consumption of the engine, making it pretty poor, because the fuel-oxygen mix was igniting way too early. There were two ways to solve this issue. One was to reduce the size of the piston, but doing that would prevent the car from starting with the self-starter. The second option was to change the fuel. Different fuels have different behaviors under compression, and those with higher failure rates catch fire instantly under pressure. These types of fuels don't need a spark plug, like in a diesel engine. In contrast, fuels with higher octane content, meaning to use a type of fuel that doesn't ignite by itself when compressed. People can only handle so much pressure, which means that in high-octane fuels, a fire only breaks out when there is a direct spark. Back when the issue was raised in the Tag Valley, the fuel used back then had 50% cotton. The dealers, Henry Leland and Charles Kettering, wanted a fuel with a higher cotton rating that wouldn't introduce any new notes. To achieve this, they hired a 27-year-old engineer, Thomas Midgley. Thomas's job was to break through the barriers and boost the fuel's top 10 ratings. 505. They experimented by adding a bunch of chemicals to the fuel. But none of it really changed the fuel's performance. For a solid 5 years, they kept coming up short. But finally, in 1923, they created a compound that boosted the fuel's performance and put an end to angel broking. It wasn't just any compound. It worked like magic, exceeding all expectations. When this compound was added to the fuel, not only did it wipe out jobs at Cadillac 30, but it also significantly improved fuel efficiency and pickup. This little addition made the fuel incredibly successful. 544. It turns out that a decision was made to produce this at a meat level. Thomas Mishry teamed up with Charles Catering to name this new product. And seeing the rising demand, they set up a new chemical plant that was supposed to prepare just that compound. But just 2 months after the plant started, an issue came up. Some workers started falling ill, and unfortunately, 5 people died. People believed the main reason was the land present in the tetraethyl. Land is a really dangerous chemical element that can stick around in human bones for years. Kind of like calcium. It also has a pretty bad impact on the brain, because it can block neurotransmitters involved in love. The media made a big fuss about this, but they didn't actually have any solid proof that land caused the workers' deaths. In reality, the amount of land in this compound was almost negligibly euro. Just 1 drop out of about 1,000. 658. Back then, the president of Standard Oil, a friend, was completely taken aback when he said that we can't just get rid of something that's benefiting thousands of people just because we have doubts about it. For many years, the land fuel created by Thomas Mishry was buzzing around the world, and millions of vehicles kept using it. Pollution kept rising for 50 years. But then research conducted in Greenland, with modern scientific tools, found out some interesting stuff. 734. It was really something else. The ice samples from the last 2,500 years were compared to the ice from 1978. And it turned out there was a 100% increase in land quantity. You can see in this graph that since the beginning of the 90s, the amount of light in the air shot up unexpectedly. And by 1978, it was already rising. To make this research even more impactful, they collected samples from the bones and teeth of several people, which were then compared to the levels of light found in the bones of mummies. This comparison also added to the findings. 814. It's been proven that in 1978, people's lead levels were 100% higher than those of people who lived 2,500 years ago. But the real question is, what kind of damage can lead cause in the body? According to research, lead can reduce blood flow, which makes it harder for blood to move around. This can lead to a bunch of health problems, including heart disease. Additionally, lead affects the brain, causing noticeable changes in P-Euro-S behavior. The research also shows that from 1950 to 1998, crime rates in the USA were on the rise. 855. To understand whether lead poisoning is behind the increase in crime rates, blood tests were conducted on many offenders. Surprisingly, it was found that a majority had high levels of lead in their blood. This trend isn't just seen in the USA. Similar crime rate graphs have been observed in the UK, Canada, and Australia. According to research from 2008, around 250,000 people die each year in the USA due to robbery-related incidents. From 1950 to 1998, about 7.5 million people in the USA died because of lead and zinc poisoning. So, just take a guess at how many people must have died around the world because of that fuel related to Thomas Fish. It wasn't just the lady's fuel that represented Thomas' biggest failure. After the success of that related fuel, he was assigned to another project. Back then, 2 really toxic gases were used in ice fryers to keep things cool. Thomas decided to walk away from that project and aimed to create a gas that wasn't flammable and was safe for urban use. He even drafted a design for a refrigerator. Thomas had named this gas after the schools on the low road. To market it, he filled his lunch with gas from the generator he showcased in front of everyone. His experiment was successful once again, and the gas started to be used widely. But the problem with this gas was that it was lighter than air. And if it was released, it would rise up into the sky and linger in the stratosphere for 50 to 100 years. Now, the issue was that when this new gas, once it started being used at that level, a lot of gas began to be released into the atmosphere. This gas got trapped in the gas stove and slowly started damaging the Earth. Similar to what diabetes does. We are still dealing with the aftermath of that disaster. Based on all this research and evidence, a decision was made to permanently ban the related fuels and refrigerant gases created by Thomas Midgley. In 1946, Japan was the first to ban those related fuels and introduced unrelated fuels. And before long, other countries followed suit. After the ban was imposed, the atmosphere started showing a decrease in land quantity. Since the incident in '78 when P was taken down, the graph has been rapidly heading downhill again. After Thomas shut down the refrigerator gas, it was observed that things were starting to need repairs once more. Of course, Thomas didn't realize that this would spiral out of control for the entire world. But many believe that the damage caused to the economy by Thomas Midgley is unparalleled. It was actually because Thomas reached his limit in '50 that things fell apart. Hope you all will like and share this video just like the Ree Inside one. Thanks for all your lovely comments and see you in the next awesome video.